Hello and welcome to another A24 Vibe discussion. Since we're reviewing a non-horror A24 film next week, this will serve as our Halloween episode. So we hope you have a handful of candy corn and an apple cider and are ready to worship at the demented altar of the horror film gods. Today, we're reviewing the 1985 horror, sci-fi, maybe comedy, cult classic, Re-Animator. But first, as we start out every episode, we tell you what we're drinking. I'm drinking a Unity Vibration Tart Raspberry Hard Kombucha, as I felt that'd be quite appropriate for this episode. Kevin, what are you drinking?
Good evening, world. It's Kevin K. Konachek. Now, I'm on the beer tonight. We're drinking a collaboration between my two favorite breweries, Youngblood Beer Company out of Madison and Lion's Tail Brewing Company, which is my current employer, which is fantastic. I'm drinking The Other Guy from Wham!, which is a cobbler-style sour ale with a whole bunch of fruit and fun stuff in it. 9% punches you in the mouth. So, yeah, it's good times.
Cole, what are you drinking?
Hey guys, it's Cole William Whitlaw Gibson, resident Alaskan. I am finishing off my Nika coffee grain whiskey. It's one of my favorites. Definitely saddened by it, finishing the bottle, but just means I got to buy another one. So up next, we have our esteemed guest.
Yes, so we have a very special guest tonight, a fellow horror lover, axe thrower, tattoo collector, and beard grower per his social media profile. He goes by @MidlifeInCrisis on his social media, but he's also known as Dean Cooper. Dean, what are you drinking tonight?
Hello, guys. Thank you for having me. Tonight, I am sticking with the basics. I'm not allowed to have alcohol anymore. Doctors told me so. So I've got me a nice glass of Coke Zero here.
Doctor's orders.
A24 Vibe discussion.
Yeah. All right. Well, as I said, today we're reviewing the 1985 film Re-Animator. This film was directed by Stuart Gordon and based off a 1920s serial novelette written by H.P. Lovecraft called Herbert West Re-Animator, but the film's obviously called Re-Animator. I have personally not delved much into H.P. Lovecraft, but do we have any Lovecraft fans here? No?
I wouldn't say I'm a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I know who Cthulhu is, right? That's the extent of it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I watch a lot of the H.P. Lovecraft movies that come out, but I've never read any of the books or anything like that. Like I've watched like The Void and the H.P. Lovecraft Country or whatever that was on HBO and some other stuff, but I've never read any of the books or anything like that. So.
Yeah, everybody knows H.P. Lovecraft, Cthulhu, that sort of thing. But he wrote so many little novellas that have been made into either television shows or movies. Talking about Dr. Herbert West Re-Animator, there's a lot coming from the story that H.P. Lovecraft wrote, but there's more coming from Stuart Gordon and Brian Usna.
Yeah, it's loosely based off that novella. So, yeah, there was definitely a lot of creativity involved in making the film. So, this film was put into production by Stuart Gordon after someone suggested the short story to him. It was originally supposed to be an adaptation of the short story that was set in the 1920s, and it was also supposed to be a half-hour TV pilot. Gordon and friends Dennis Paoli and William Norris wrote the script for, I think, 13 total episodes of this supposed TV show before they figured out that would be too expensive to produce. And these scripts eventually got in the hands of Brian
Usna.
Yeah,
Usna.
Okay, who then convinced Gordon to make a Hollywood film instead of a TV show. And most of this film was shot on sets in Los Angeles, but the film was set in Chicago, and the morgue set was apparently based on the Cook County morgue. And shooting started in November of 1984 and took 4 weeks to film before being released in October 18th, 1985. Now, I understand this film was originally released unrated because Stuart Gordon was scared the film would get an X rating if he submitted it to the Motion Picture Association of America, and then it was re-edited and resubmitted to the MPAA to get an R rating and to have another release. Now, Dean, have you seen both the original R-rated version and the X-rated version? Or, I mean, what they consider the X-rated version?
Yes, there is the unrated version, which is pretty much what everybody has seen. There is the R-rated version, which is cut down quite a bit on the gore and that sort of thing. They did do if you buy a DVD from certain companies that do more special features. There's an integral version where they combine both of those to make one whole movie. So when you start learning about the things that they cut, when you watch this movie, you can kind of tell, okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Something was cut there because some of the scenes don't really make too much sense without the ideas of those things that were cut.
And is there a director's cut too? Is that completely separate? Like, was that released later or?
Yeah, that'd be the integral cut is what it's called. You got to buy a high end Blu-ray with a lot of the backgrounds and all that other stuff. So
yeah, for sure. Well, basically, this film did not get much advertising due to it being unrated, so it only made about $2,023,414 in the U.S. on a $900,000 budget initially when it came out, which is still a success. But then when it was released on VHS, that is when it really exploded in popularity. So this film is really the original definition of a cult classic. Now, Cole, you've seen this film before, right?
Yes, I've seen it once before.
What was it? When did you first watch it?
I watched it back when I was in high school. I was probably like a freshman or sophomore when I started getting really big into like B horror movies with my buddies, and like, not that I would necessarily say this is a B horror movie, but got real big into the creature features, and that's when I discovered my love of The Thing and stuff like that. So went down that rabbit hole of really cool practical effects and the kind of the creature feature genre and whatnot, and this stumbled across my way when I was in high school.
And Kevin, this is your first time, right?
Yeah, I suppose that's why I'm on this podcast, because A, this is my first time, but B, I'd never even heard of Re-Animator. Like, you couldn't have, really? I couldn't even picked it out of a list of movies, then placed it anywhere near this genre prime or place. But goddamn, am I glad that I'm here and have a great opportunity to watch what is clearly a classic in cinema. Like, holy shit, this is just a really fun watch from start to finish. But B, I also get to totally dive into something that I've never really had given too much time to until this experiment. So thanks, guys, appreciate it. But yeah, very first time, brand new, completely blind lens going into it.
Yeah, and this was my first time too, although I've heard of it before. Oddly enough, when I watched like American Beauty, probably in the early 2000s, they mentioned Re-Animator and American Beauty, and I wondered what film is that, and I saw the poster for it, and it stuck with me ever since, even though I didn't watch it up until now. Dean, when was the first time you watched this film?
Probably about 10 years ago. This one, we're talking about B movies. This is like a classic B movie, but it's up on like the higher spectrum of the B movies. It's very, very popular amongst the early horror guys, the different evolutions of horror. Now we've got this elevated horror. But back in the day, you had Re-Animator, which gave you some practical effects. It gave you a lot of blood and a lot of gore, but it actually has a coherent storyline, which that's, it's much appreciated for watching some of these older horror movies. But it's my wife's favorite movie as well. So we watch it all the time along with its sequels.
Yeah. No, this definitely seems like one of those films you can watch every year at Halloween, and it never gets old. So now there's a whole lot of plot twists in this film and turns in this film, so I didn't really want to do like a scene-by-scene review here. Instead, we'll have like a little bit more of a general discussion tonight, and I wanted to start out with talking about the score, which was composed by Richard Band and is eerily similar to Psycho. Kevin, our resident music lover, what did you think of the score here?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I couldn't necessarily put it on Psycho, probably because for me, guess what? I haven't seen it, but it did remind me of Exorcist a little bit, and it did just remind me of just what I would hope a classic horror soundtrack would be. It fit the tone perfectly. It wasn't out of place at all. and I can absolutely see why it's such a feature to this film, and definitely why it's compared to Hitchcock's Psycho as far as something that sticks out in cinema history, I suppose, from a music standpoint. So really cool, and I'm really glad I got to experience it first time.
Yeah. Dean, do you have any little tidbits about the music here, like why it's so eerily similar to Psycho?
So Richard Band has done tons of music for lower budget horror films. And I will be honest with you, I'm surprised he did not get sued for this one because it sounds damn near the same as the Psycho opening montage. So of course it's good because, Psycho.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Now, when Stuart Cooper and the writers were first getting the ideas for this film, they wanted to make this film more of a serious horror sci-fi film, and it really wasn't until later when they started editing this film and when they really started writing this film, making the film, and then editing it, that they realized that they might be making a comedy. Cole, do you think it's more of a comedy or a horror film or a sci-fi film? Where does this fall for you?
It kind of falls in the weird Venn diagram of the middle. I don't think it's a comedy, but it has great comedic timing and great scenes that lend itself to that kind of comedy thing, like the whole sideshow comment where he makes the joke of, no one's going to believe a talking head. Why don't you go work at the sideshow? That's a classic line. And then for horror, I don't know if I would ever, I would say it's horror just more from a body horror aspect, but there's nothing that jumps out or scares you, or it doesn't do that, I guess, elevated horror, the slow burn, like The Witch or some of these other films that we've watched. It's more of just, it kind of shows you the gore and the fun of it, and then the sci-fi aspect obviously is the Re-Animator. So if I had to pick, I would probably go with a horror comedy, lighter on the comedy, more maybe a dark comedy, but I don't know, it just falls into that classic B film category where it does some goofy campy stuff that you just can't help but to love, right? It just scratches that itch so well that a lot of films struggle to do, especially if they're trying to be funny with it. So I'm surprised that those guys actually realized they were making a funny movie at the time, because when they lean into it, usually it tends to go the wrong way, but they did it the right way on this one.
For sure. Kevin, yeah, where does this fall for you?
Ooh. All right, so I don't think I did not think about it in a comedic standpoint at all during it, but as Cole was describing it, why it felt that way, I was taken to an interview that I was reading about this film in the background, and that all of our main characters all are classically trained actors, meaning they're all got background on the stage, whether it be Shakespeare or Broadway or the things like that. So they have a ton of these acting chops before they even take it to the screen. And so somehow the way that they all interact with each other really comes across as so natural, and the timing is so wonderful that I think that the elements of the dialogue just come across as almost comedic, because it's just you're thrown into this world, right? And you're thrown into this interaction between all of them, and it's just kind of like a fly on the wall while you're watching all of this craziness happen. And I just really think that those particular acting chops lend that, and then of course the dialogue and the writing is all really well done too. But horror for sure, horror for 99% of it, I guess. But the moments that it didn't were ridiculous, but not in a bad way, but ridiculous in a I'm watching a talking head in a thing of blood, just the ridiculousness of the scenario. But still, there was many moments where I was yelling, right? I was like, what the fuck am I seeing? This is insane. I can't believe they're going for that route. It's when the first time I watched The Thing, just all of the different transformations and all the effects, and I was just like, what am I seeing? And especially for me, having no fucking clue what this was ahead of time, I was just embracing all of it. I was just enthralled. It was just this is great. This is Halloween. I'm watching it, and I'm so happy. So yeah, there's that.
Definitely. When that the intestines came out of Dr. West, that reminded me of The Thing for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Dean, as somebody who's seen this film many times, is this film more of a comedy to you or a horror film, or where does it fall for you?
I could tell very much that when they originally filmed it, they wanted it to be a little bit more serious than the ultimate product was. But Jeffrey Combs is Dr. Herbert West. Y'all mentioned just the background of some of these actors in this movie. Jeffrey Combs just has amazing timing, amazing delivery. His voice, he's a fairly prodigious voice actor as well. So you got, you've got Dr. Herbert West, who's coming across as the comedian, and then you got the character Dan is kind of coming across as the straight man. So just listening to Jeff Combs deliver some of these lines, it's his choice to do them the way that he did it, and it's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. And now, as I previously mentioned, the makers of this film were scared of getting an X rating due to the gore and nudity in the film, and it was originally released unrated before they released a modified and edited version to the MPAA to get an R rating. Dean, what do you think of the gore in this film? Like, I guess why so much of it too? Is that just? I mean, that's not really a Lovecraft thing, is it? Or yeah.
No, it was 1985. So, you're coming off of things like Nightmare, no, not Nightmare, but Friday the 13th. You got Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. These movies kind of had that bigger budget feel to them. And when you get the guy going around, with the VHS camera trying to make a movie, you want to try to grab the attention of the audience. And back in the 80s, it was throw a bunch of blood at the screen if you can. The actual effects supervisor told in an interview that they used over 25 gallons of fake blood, which was the most that he's ever used in a film. So, and I hate to say it, but the blood is kind of appropriate. They 100% overuse it, but as a film, watching it seems 100% good to go with the blood.
Yeah. No, I
sorry,
respect that they lead into it. Yeah, that's all.
A little bit of research on Stuart Gordon. It looks like he was known for some of his live theater at the University of Wisconsin in the late 1960s. So he was doing a lot of this experimental stuff using, I'm assuming, a lot of blood on stage, right? If you're trying to do this, he founded what's called the Organic Theater Company. And it's just what the Wikipedia is telling me here, but that means he's definitely had some pretty good experience in making those visuals, and I think he probably just went all in on it. It's just yep, let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Cole, where does this compare in terms of practical effects and gore? How does this compare to The Thing?
I mean, it's hard to compare something to the best film ever made. So I love The Thing. It's definitely my favorite movie, and I think it has the best. But The Thing's practical effects, I will say this movie had very good practical effects. I enjoyed them a lot, but I felt like they didn't let them, breathe, or you didn't get to see them as much as The Thing. Like The Thing, they really let you kind of just zone in and see exactly everything they're doing and really get all that detail, and they kind of show you everything. Well, this one you get kind of a lot more of hard cuts and kind of chaotic, which the scenes are chaotic, so I understand why they filmed it that way. So I felt like I didn't get to enjoy the special effects in this, or the practical effects in this, as much as I did in The Thing, but I still thought they were very good and very fun and very fitting, and especially I was not prepared for the end, or towards the end, where he just double pumps him full of the Re-Animator juice, and he just turns into this monstrosity. I wasn't expecting that, so that was kind of a fun shake up when I first saw it. And I thought he was just gonna maybe explode or something, but instead he transforms into this grotesque monstrosity, and so I enjoyed that. And good special effects, but you can't beat the goat.
Can't beat The Thing. Yeah. See, I have a black cat, and so this film, when I saw the cat in the fridge, I was like the meme of the ape. I was like, oh no! I was like, and then he also threw the cat against the wall, and I still respected the hell out of the special effects in here, the practical effects. I think this film leans into it, and I don't know if it's tasteful, but it's I don't want it to be tasteful either. They just go full tilt, and that's what it's supposed to be. So yeah.
There was when we got to the scene where our lead lady gets strapped to the table. I was just like, man, you're just going full at this. You're going everything into it, and you just I don't know if you're going scene by scene, but they really don't hold back, and I guess I really respect that for that.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, we've been talking about the acting. So all these people are kind of Shakespearean actors. And it's interesting, though, like, because we're talking about how much gore is in here, how this film's a bit campy, and it comes off as a little bit comedic, yet we have respected actors in here. Dean, can you talk to me a bit about, like, the acting jobs in here? Like, how it seems like, I think you originally said Dr. West. He was leaning into the comedic parts of the role, right? And then, what's it, Dan, right? He was being more of the straight man. Could you talk to me a little bit about like these actors and how they played their roles in here?
So you got Jeffrey Combs. Like I said, he's just like the ultimate character actor. A lot of the Star Trek fans will know him from his many different roles. He's done as many as 10 different characters across 6 different Star Trek television shows. And they're all different characters with different makeup and different appliances and everything like that. So, and he's also a huge Edgar Allan Poe fan. He's done audio recordings of all Poe's work. And he's done the stage productions of Poe and the Lovecraft stuff. So he's very, very into acting in general. Dan playing the straight man, he does a great job. I mean, the story's about Herbert West needing somebody to help him with pretty much the real world aspect of what he wants to do. Dan does a great job of doing that. And you have Barbara Crampton as Meg, the female lead. Mm-hmm. She is the scream queen. Mm-hmm. We have final girls now, but in the 80s, there were scream queens. And she has been in so many movies like Re-Animator that, everybody knows her. She's always on the convention circuit getting autographs, and she's still doing some work right now. So those are kind of your top 3. And you got David Gale, who plays Dr. Hill, Shakespearean trained actor. He was just amazing in it as well.
Yeah. Kevin, did the acting sell it for you in here, even though we had such a gory and kind of campy movie?
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. You don't have this movie be what it is without these roles. I mean, the ability to have this disembodied talking head to develop into this kind of personality and to continue on this character, even though all of the physical acting is now eliminated, is even more impressive. Like, he still comes off as this fun villain. Fun, I don't know if fun is the right word there, but he comes across as this compelling villain, even though Mr. West is by all intents and purposes the actual villain of our story, right? If you think about it, from taking life into its own hands and trying to manipulate the circle of life, as they say. But the acting jobs really just go above and beyond, even from the portrayal of the Dean, right, in his role, even from after he got lobotomized. Like, there's still a lot that you have to play throughout this entire film, and they did such a good job with the small amount of time that they had. I mean, we put this into under 90 minutes, and now obviously they got the extended version. They cut a whole bunch of stuff, and for whatever reason that was, but they had to do what they could with what they had. And honestly, when I first watched Dan, I thought it was a young Robert De Niro, and I was like, wait, did I miss something here? But then clearly was not as it went on. But yeah, it was very good, and I enjoyed every second of it because of the acting jobs. It's like, normally you could be like, this is ridiculous, like, this concept is insane, this is a severed head talking, but there's just something compelling about it.
Yep. Well, Re-Animator, the short story, is based, it's definitely a take on the classic Frankenstein tale, or kind of the idea that using science as a mean to subvert life and death, or playing God, will always end in tragedy. Cole, what did you think of the theme of this film and like the Re-Animator's take on this classic tale?
Yeah, I thought it was a fun and unique spin, where it definitely is just, is the Frankenstein spin on it, but at the time you had a lot of movies like Evil Dead and Dawn of the Dead, and a lot of zombie. There's a big zombie outbreak, and so they kind of spun it with like Frankenstein with zombies, and then you add some of the gore and some of the comedic aspects, and they kind of found their own niche in a way that definitely started out as a Frankenstein, but then changed and kind of subverted a lot of what you thought it was going to be. And I really, really enjoyed their take on it all.
Mm-hmm. Dean, are you a fan of Mary Shelley or Frankenstein or kind of the classics there, or?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Going back to Universal Monsters with Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, there are definitely decisions that they made to kind of put this alongside of a mad scientist. Dr. Frankenstein, Dr. West. They're trying to cheat death and get people to live after they're not supposed to, and generally that's a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of like what puts this film in a different realm for me too, though, is it definitely like pays homage to some of the horror classics in Hollywood, like Frankenstein, and even some of the early. I wouldn't say, because zombie films weren't really big until Night of the Living Dead, except I guess Night of the Living Dead came out in the late '60s, so you could say that partly inspired this. But it definitely grabs from different classic Hollywood horror ideas, which I think actually gives this film a little bit more respect, especially in the critical and Hollywood circles. So it's kind of cool to see too. Now, although this film has elements of like horror and sci-fi and comedy, it also is at its heart a love story. Kevin, what did you think about our love story between Dan Kane and Megan Halsey?
You're right, and it kept harkening back to that, right? Every time you would have a bit of the development of Mr. West and our monster, it also came back and reminded us that this was, like you said, a love story, and that in the end, it's his love for Meg that causes his actions. At the very end, it's her. I mean, it's love all around the whole thing, right? Love for the father that really chooses Meg's choice and how to move forward with him, not just to completely allow him to be completely experimented. Obviously, he was later, but the love story was compelling. And then, of course, the father not giving his permission and how that interacted with him being a med student, and the choice to allow him to stay in school but remove his funding. And they just did a good job of developing relationships in general, right? So it's not doesn't necessarily have to be the idea of a straight love story with sex scenes, but the idea that we had all of these different relationships developed throughout the film, from, like I said, father-daughter to these young fiance and his future bride, to even just the relationship between a roommate and someone who you're a stranger with, and how you have to trust somebody based on looks alone or their prestige or whatever that may be. So the movie asks a lot of great questions about those relationships while still serving a ridiculous purpose of being like, well, yeah, what if you could bring someone back from the dead?
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, and I definitely feel like there's a Shakespearean tragedy element to this with the ending too, and it's it was sort of like star-crossed lovers, and then in the end, one of them ends up, I guess, kind of accidentally killing the other one and then making a monster of them, which is so interesting to see too. This film also has great villains in Dr. Herbert West and Dr. Carl Hill. Cole, talk to me a bit about the creation of these two villains throughout the film, because at the start, it seemed like Dr. West would be our main villain, but then Dr. Carl Hill kind of overtakes him in that category eventually. So talk to me a bit about like these two as our main villains in this film.
Yeah, well, Dr. West, he got his start working underneath Hans Gruber, which, if you're familiar with one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time, Die Hard, is also the main villain. Named Hans Gruber.
That came out later than Re-Animator, though. Die Hard.
I know.
Of course
I'm just,
it did, but
connecting the dots.
Point is,
okay. Anyone named Hans Gruber is not a good person. Yeah. Just remember that, folks. But no, I liked the transition. I like when films start with a villain and end with a different villain that kind of takes over, and you kind of get that Dr. Hill is not a good person pretty quickly, but you don't, I guess understand how terrible of a person, he is immediately offended and doesn't like to be challenged by Dr. West in terms of his stature and esteem. And then he makes some very questionable comments towards Megan Halsey in the film. And then as the scene where he gets his head chopped off, I kind of liked it. I was like, well, that guy was kind of a dick, so it's okay. And then he brings him back. But then, when he gains sentience and, gets his way and starts stealing Dr. West and becomes the big bad guy, I really liked that transition of essentially West and Kane have to work together to try and stop the new evil that's taken over, which is Dr. Hill. I thought that was a fun spin, and again, one of those unique things that this movie does that you don't see in a lot of other like B-rated or even other horror films where, a lot of times it's just big bad guy makes monster, you have to fight the monster and stop the big bad guy. But this time the big bad guy, makes kind of transitions and passes the torch off to a new bad guy, and then he ends up almost saving the day in a way at the end, right? He sacrifices himself, not without giving him his notes away. He had to make sure his notes and his work continued on. That's what, that was his love. Dr. West's love was his notes and his work and continuing it. So, but yeah, it was definitely a good choice. And I liked that transition of power.
Mm-hmm. Dean, yeah, talk to me a bit about Dr. West and Dr. Hill here, and just kind of, I guess, where they stand as villains, like in the old school horror lore here.
So I guess you call Dr. Herbert West an anti-hero. His obsession is his work. We talk about different love stories, like was just said. Yeah, that's his love story, is his work. He doesn't care about men, women, or whatever. He just wants his work to be completed. The Dr. Hill, this is one of the storylines that was actually taken out of the unrated version. Dr. Hill originally had psychic powers and could hypnotize people and make them do things against their will. There's still a couple little scenes in there right before he gets his head chopped off. He's talking to Dr. West and saying, "Give me your work," and West gets kind of like a real just blank face and just dutifully hands it over, which is completely against what you would think Herbert West would do. But the reason why he's able to control all the reanimated corpses was based off of that psychic connection that he had. So it was still able to see a little bit of it in there, but it was kind of a cool direction if they could have kept it in too.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Now, Cole, does this film go into creature feature for you? Like, is this a technical creature feature, or is it more zombie / Frankenstein?
I mean, it depends if you consider zombies a creature feature or if you want to have it as its own standalone, right? I think it definitely falls into the zombie kind of Evil Dead genre. I don't know if I would consider those creature features, but I know some people do. But yeah, this would fall into the kind of like a zombie or like weird kind of, just go with zombie, I guess, overall.
Yeah. And do you like the creatures in here, I guess, when you compared to the other creature features / zombie films of the day?
Yeah, I'm always a sucker for zombies, but I liked the design of these ones where like they get massive veins, and the scene where the first guy that they reanimate when he like sits up, it reminds me a lot of Evil Dead, which is one of my favorite movies. Like when the girl comes up and their face is kind of almost like falling apart and just real grotesque and lots of blood and just really good. And the first reanimated corpse that they bring back, I thought he was so cool because he's just this giant jacked dude who has just like massive veins but also has like a really disgusting face and full of blood, and definitely gets the terror going in terms of that. And I think in terms of zombies, I think that is a lot more scarier than just like the shambling, like lonely moaning zombies, something that is faster and has strength and maybe they talk about if it's, does it have a consciousness or is it just an animalistic instinct type thing? And I like that it had that kind of instinct and reaction to it. Like, 28 Days Later, I think, did a great job with zombies and really spun it on its head. And I think this one, not directly a zombie film, but does a slightly different variation that I enjoy a lot.
For sure. Kevin, as somebody who doesn't really like horror films that much, how did these zombies/creatures affect you? Did you like the creature design in here, I guess?
So I found myself asking more questions in my head about what was the difference between, like, the amount of dose that caused the first one to be so violent and crazy. I'm sure they talk about a time of death and how long it's affected, and they go into that versus the freshness of being able to reanimate it. But I was more fascinated about the technology and, like, kind of the idea of what affects it, what, changes a mindless zombie who is hell-bent on just killing and has unlimited strength to then someone who is able to I really wish that, Dean, they explored that more now, because the whole idea of the mind control thing, it makes a lot more sense now, how that severed head was able to not just control his own body, but then be able to command all of the other reanimated corpses to fight for him. And that absolutely would have been way cooler if they would have been able to control that, because now thinking about it, and if I watch it again, it's like, oh yeah, no, if he has these mind powers, then he has this ability to do all these other things, which makes it even more impressive. I love the scene where he's just tapping his pencil on the head, waiting for it to wake up, and the eyes just flick open. I was like, oh yeah, here we go. Like, I'm immediately ready for whatever happens after that. And they were genuinely terrifying. Like, the whole, when they were beating the shit out of each other, and then the whole intestines coming out, and like the amount of just practical effects they put into really making it, the makeup involved in the faces was just brilliant. Like, they just did such a great job. I keep thinking back to the Dean too, his lobotomized state in that crazed face, and the way they were able to get this just whole aspect into it. I've come a long way in my lack of horror love ever since been doing this podcast now almost 2 years. You really have. I mean, I've watched plenty of horror movies now that I never would have touched with a 10-foot pole hadn't we've been on this podcast. But it makes me appreciate them a whole lot more. I was thinking back to that question where we asked Cole about the difference between The Thing and this. The Thing comes out in 82. This comes out in 85. So I mean, there's some really, really, really close similarities there. This one feels much lower budget in the sense, but not in lowered intent or not lowered content or creativity, just much lower in that they don't get the A Hollywood actors at the time and the big Hollywood budget and all of the effects that they were able to do at the time versus this one. And I'm pretty sure that's accurate, right? That The Thing had the biggest budget the big actors and all of that jazz. But this one really stands up, and I'm excited. Let's flash forward, mark it a year from now when we do Bride of Re-Animator, because I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm sure we'll talk about it here in a second. But it's fascinating to me, and I kind of want to go back and watch it again. And it's on YouTube. For those who are listening, just go put in Re-Animator. You can go watch it for free. It doesn't cost you anything. Just go watch it, and you can answer these questions, because it's just really fun. I enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see it again.
For sure. And Dean, as somebody who's seen both versions of the film, is the original, like the unrated ending, is that probably better than the R-rated ending, or is there a difference in the endings in each of the films?
Not the endings. The ending, it's and I love the way the ending's filmed. Of course, Dan and Meg are in an elevator, and she's dead, she's gone, but he still has some of the reagent, the green glow juice that gives everybody life, and you can kind of see that there's a bit of a pause for a second, and he's like, do I really want to try this? And going back to the love story, he loves her so much that he wants to try to bring her back. And the way that the film kind of fades out but focuses on that glowing green needle right before it disappears, and you hear her scream. So it's a really well filmed ending. Kind of leaves you, on your toes, wondering, did it work? Or is she just going to be another crazed reanimated corpse? One thing I do want to go back to is that first reanimated corpse, the big Jack dude. That is Peter Kent, who played Arnold Schwarzenegger's double for years.
That's awesome.
In the Terminator and everything too, or
Yep. In the Terminator, there's always a scene where in Terminator 2 where Terminator's supposed to be jumping his motorcycle down into the conduit down there, or the aqueduct, and it's straight up right there. You can tell that that's not Arnold, and that is 100% Peter Kent. Mm-hmm. So so they got him. They couldn't get Arnold, so they got his stunt double.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so let's just general thoughts on the ending. Cole, what did you think of the ending and how they wrapped it all up?
I thought it was a good ending. I felt like it kind of the, you have a lot of these movies or these horror movies and stuff that have, I would say, throwaway love stories or romance or just stuff that never pays off. While this one, I feel like the ending kind of wraps it all together, where Dan's character goes through a transformation. He sees all this horrible stuff. Initially he was completely against the Re-Animator, I guess, like serum, and then he gets into it. And then at the end is this kind of love story with Megan that goes through, kind of culminates with him at the end, where she dies because of, what he got himself wrapped up into and all this mess and everything like that. And he's a desperate man, and he's gonna give her that shot, but it kind of ends, and you want more, which obviously leads to the sequels and things like that. But I thought they did a great job, where you got validation with the film that you watched for the time. You felt like you didn't waste your time with the ending, but also what gave you that wanting of more type thing. And I really thought it was probably the perfect ending for a very good film.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I said, I didn't want to do a scene by scene review of this because I felt this film could have got very convoluted if they didn't stick to that love story and the ending there, because there's so many plot twists and turns in here. But then the way they stuck to the love story and then stuck with a tragic kind of Shakespearean ending, I think that really tied up the film well and made this film a classic, like how it's viewed today. Kevin, what did you think of the ending?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It felt like a theater piece. Like I've been kind of, it felt like they did a really great job of buttoning it up in a major tour de force for everybody involved. Like it was everybody's big act, everybody's big hurrah, and the finale is just dramatic and slow, and it's absolute copy for copy of the opening, which I thought was phenomenal too, like from the CPR aspect, and like being able to close it the same way that you opened it was just a really fascinating thing. And using Dan as that main character in between, but he's totally different now than he was as an aspiring med student at the beginning of this film, and only like what seems like days, probably, if you really think about how like the way they did the pacing and everything on this film, and the way that the movie ends, it feels like you just got off of a ridiculous roller coaster, meaning like the fight scene and all of the interaction and all the action in the basement, to the strangling of the disembodied arm in the elevator, to that final moment where her heart's flat and it's just stopped. It's like you have to breathe a little bit. You have to like take in a moment, like, holy shit, that all just happened. You have to process that. One of your main characters is gone. Someone that you've been with your entirety from the start to the finish. Someone character you've developed. You've got feelings for. You felt the empathy for that character as they were going through that emotion on the table. I mean, all of that, and all of a sudden it's gone. And it's just they left you wanting so much more, but not in a I'm furious that I don't get more, which has happened to me in film, where you're just like, I can't believe you ended that. It's not artistic. Stop that. Versus this is, yeah, I get it. I can totally see that. And if you do make a sequel, I'm going to be here for it. But if you don't, I can appreciate this entirety of it from start to finish. So. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, before we give our ratings, Dean, you go to like a lot of horror conventions, right? Or you've been to a few. Could you talk a little bit about like kind of the fandom behind this film and what this film means to old school horror fans?
Yeah, this one's for the deep cut crowd. Okay. Going to the horror conventions. Jeffrey Combs goes to those as well as the Star Trek conventions. Barbara Crampton's there. Charles Band, his brother Robert Band, they did the music. They've been doing shows, and of course nowadays you're getting a little bit up there, and their projects aren't as numerous as they used to be. But this is a film that for anybody that has watched more than Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Scream, this is kind of one of those things to put in your belt. So yeah, I've seen that, and I love that movie. That's a kind of a classic. You like that 80s stuff. So
have you seen any successful cosplays of the man with his head walking around? Is that can people actually do that?
That's actually funny because my wife Stephanie, a few years back, she did that. She was actually Dr. West, and we ordered a fake head and put a wig on it, and she did all sorts of cool makeup effects to look like it was a disembodied head. So
that's awesome. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
and it's a pretty easy one too to do. Just put some glasses and get a lab coat. But you gotta get that look down.
Put the lab coat over your head, and you just got to get a disembodied head. Yeah,
definitely.
I will give respect to anybody who commits to it too, because that would be annoying to do all day too. But yeah, for sure. All right, let's get into our ratings. I guess I'll start out here. As a fan of old school horror, a lot of the gory old school 80s horror films don't always hit home for me, but for some reason this one really, really did. Maybe it's because I'm getting more into like kind of campy horror and respecting the camp aspects of a lot of older films, especially when they lean into it and they kind of know that they're leaning into it. And I love the gore in here. And like we've been talking about this whole podcast, I love like how they stuck to the love story and like the tragic ending. And then I also love how it pulls from like a lot of horror classics like Frankenstein, like zombie films, and like you can tell all of the inspiration is all there for you. And there's something for me about low budget, when a low budget film really does it right and like really seals the deal. And I respect it even more for being on that low budget and for just knocking it out of the park like this. Because honestly, when I started watching this film, I almost like thought this was the camera quality of like a Lifetime film. And then the gore started happening, and then I'm like, okay, wait, this is kind of perfect for this. And I loved it. And the acting really, like we've been talking about this whole podcast, it's like acting way beyond like what you would expect out of like an 80s campy gory film. And all those reasons, I will give it an A-, which I gave The Thing a B+, so I'm gonna give this slightly above The Thing, just as screw you to Cole. So there you go. Cole, what's your rating of this film?
You got to remind me what I got on The Thing, Eric, so I don't overrate versus The Thing.
You might have given it an A+, I think.
Yeah, I think you probably gave it an A+, as it deserves.
As it deserves, yeah.
So I really like this movie. I love, the practical effects, the 80s horror movies. I've been banging this drum for a long time. I really like this movie. I think this movie has probably one of the best movie posters of all time. Like Eric talked about, where I had seen this poster and it had stuck with me before I even watched the movie. But it's such a cool poster and cool design, and the movie does not disappoint either. It's a ton of fun. It's not too scary for anyone to watch, and it's like Kevin said, it's a very fun roller coaster. But it is not The Thing, so I can't give it the same level. And with Eric's slander, I think I have to give this a B+. I think it's one of the best maybe B horror movies of all time. So
Gotcha. All right, Kevin, how about you? What rating do you give this one?
All right. I don't know about slander. They're both very good, but I do think that The Thing does get an edge for me as well. Probably just because of the sheer variety of the effects and the sheer immense number of them. If you just think about it, from the dogs to all the different people, and to just, I could go on and on and on. But this movie was very good. I enjoyed it. It is unique in its sense that we talked about this very, very early, how today we're talking about elevated horror, but this 40 years ago, right, still had you thinking about it a little bit more while massively dumping blood all over the screen, having guts flying everywhere, and having a large amount of nudity as well. I mean, this was truly a campy horror romp. This was not, not Hollywoodized, I suppose, but it really is a B film that has gotten this cult classic status because of how well it was produced, how well it was written, directed, and overall acted. We've talked about all these points ad nauseum, so I won't do it anymore, but these are the reasons why it turned out so great and why I enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to seeing its sequel because of all of these elements. It's a character in Dr. Herbert West that I think kind of stands up in horror fandom, right? And if you think about really iconic characters, for me, just being introduced to this person and being like, oh, this guy's got it. This guy's got something for staying power, and that's why this film is being talked about and why we chose it for our Halloween episode and just all of those things. So it's going to get an A24 for me. If I gave the thing an A+, if I don't think I gave the A thing less than that, but this is an A24. It's quite good. I'm really excited. I'm going to tell all my friends to go check this one out if they haven't yet, because it's well worth your 90 minutes. So, yeah, Re-Animator.
All right, saving the best guest for last. Dean, what will you give this film?
Well, I do have to give respect for The Thing, of course. John Carpenter, that's for me. Most of Carpenter's things are on a completely different level, but Re-Animator it's a surprise. A lot of people, when they first watch it, they don't know what they're getting into. They're seeing a guy running around with the lab coat and a glowing syringe, but it does have a bit of that growth that you see horror movies kind of go through up until today. It's got a great story. It sticks to the story. It is bloody and gory, but I don't think it qualifies as something like gore porn. The gore and the blood, it's there for a reason. These reanimated corpses at the end with the holes in their head, missing arms, that goes back to the fact that they went to a morgue and those corpses were reanimated. So how they died, they're going to with a hole in their head from a shotgun or run over by a truck. It is a surprisingly good movie. So I've always called this one about an A- for myself.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. Next week we'll be reviewing the A24 film A Prayer Before Dawn. So listen to that, but also if you want to go back and listen to other horror reviews from us, we've reviewed films from this past year, like Late Night with the Devil and Longlegs. We've also reviewed It Follows, The Exorcist, The Thing, and A24 horror films like Hereditary, It Comes at Night, and Blackcoat's Daughter. So check those out.
Witch.
Yes. Oh, and the Witch, yeah. The Witch. Yeah.
Witch.
So check those out. Don't forget to rate and subscribe, and also subscribe to Dean on social media. He's at Midlife in Crisis on all of his social channels. Dean, do you want to add anything else, or?
It's just I'm happy you guys had me on, and I'm happy that movies like this are still being talked about. I'm a little bit older than you guys, so that's kind of my horror, and I'm glad that the younger generation still has the ability to see movies like Re-Animator.
Mm-hmm. For sure. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.